Hello YouTubers, and welcome to part 4 of Fancy a Beer. Well, if you've followed me this far, you should now be wired up and ready to switch on the SFR-1 and fire up the software. In this, the final part of the series, I'm going to look at the Sound Teacher software and show you how to get control of your model. For clarity, I am programming using the KUSB2 data cable connected to the SFR-1 at one end and my computer at the other end, running Windows 11. If you do not have a data cable to program, you'll have to remove the micro SD card, place it in a suitable card reader in your PC, write to it, and then replace it in the SFR-1 and restart the device. Here's what I'm covering today. Data flow chart, which looks at the general system overview, how to get started after our initial setup, and general configuration of the software, including sound files and lighting. So let's get started. Here's a general system overview. Hopefully this should be clear to you by now. The data flows are inputs, transmitter and receiver to the SFR-1, outputs, that's the motor speed control, servo and lighting, programming, which is via the micro SD card or USB data cable to the Sound Teacher running on your PC. You may of course have a direct channel to a peripheral such as another servo or an ACU or O2. In part 2 we covered off the initial setup. There's a few things you need to do to get the SFR-1 up and running properly. This is why I advocate a two-stage approach. In part 2 I showed you a working test model without any lighting. That was the first stage. The second stage is programming. After initial setup we were able to test stick travel, the motor control, steering, gears and optional parts like the ACU O2 boom control. Once all of this is working correctly and you are confident your stick switches are correctly assigned and cover the range you require, we can move on to the general setup of the software and obviously the update to the SFR-1. I find it's better to do it this way, as trying to sort out the lights when you're not too sure if a channel is working properly or not can be difficult to sort out. It's a bit like wondering why your car won't start. Is it a mechanical fault, electrical fault, or are you just playing out of fuel? The less variables we have makes the process easier to follow. It's time to switch on and power up the SFR-1. You may experience some odd sounds, lights coming on. Don't worry, the SFR-1 at this stage thinks it's a washing machine. In Sound Teacher now, click on File, Open Project. Many pre-programmed sounds and config files exist for you in the SFR-1 Sounds folder. Navigate to the folder now and choose a truck similar to yours. For my example, I'm using Truck Detroit Diesel. Inside the folder is a file called detroitdiesel.sfr. Click on it and then click Open. You'll be taken back to the main screen, which will populate with a range of WAV files, sound files, and you will see confirmation that particular sound module file has been loaded correctly. At this stage you have the file loaded in Sound Teacher, but you haven't sent it to the SFR-1 yet or saved your initial configuration. First off, locate the red floppy disk icon at the top of the screen and click it. This is the Save As command. You will be prompted to save your creation in your own folder with your own name. For example, create a new folder in My Documents and call it My Detroit Truck. Open the folder and click Save. You will be asked to copy all of the associated files for your truck, and say yes. You now have your own copy of the default file. If you use Save as opposed to Save As, you will write any changes you've made over the original file. It's best not to do that. This way you keep a default, unedited file to revert to if the need arises. Next thing we're going to do is send the data to the SFR-1 to overwrite its current program. Click on Transfer Project Data. The status area bottom left should tell you it has found the SFR-1, and progress bars will show data being transferred. Initially this may take up to 3 minutes as the files are being copied. You may even be asked to update an outdated firmware. This is normal and you should let it do so. When all data has been transferred, you will see a confirmation. Note that future transfers will not take anywhere near as long, as you will only be transferring maybe a few changes that you've made. So any time you make a change, you must save it and send it to the SFR-1. If you make a change in the Sound Teacher software and get confused or are not sure what you're doing, just close the program and don't save changes. That way, when you reopen the program, it will be as you left it previously, just as you would do with a Word or an Excel document. That's it. Your SFR-1 is now running the Detroit Diesel configuration file, or your configuration file. Ah, yes, you say, but I can't hear anything. Well, no, you won't yet. Okay, time to look at general configuration. We will now set up a few basic things. I can't cover every single tick box and pull down menu. I'd be here for a week. If there's something I didn't cover that is of interest to you, don't forget the manual. It's a great resource. Type the term you're interested in the search box to learn more about that particular issue. From the opening main screen, click the Configuration tab and then the General tab. In the Module Configuration box, click the down arrow next to Startup function. In the next window, select the button next to Engine Sound On Off, then click on Save. Back at the General tab, you'll now see the Startup drop list has been populated with this function or action. When the SFR-1 is updated, you should hear the engine sound, but we won't update it just yet. We'll set up a few things first and do one update. Leave the volume at 100%. This is the maximum output from the SFR-1. If you plan on using a transmitter receiver channel for your volume, you can select it in the direct volume control drop list. If not, leave it blank. The battery monitoring section is self-explanatory really. Make sure you set your battery type, voltage and thresholds. Now click on the Speed Controller tab. The SFR-1 has a cruise or speed control function which is off by default. Under Speed Controller Properties, click the first box button and the second one if you want the cruise to work in forward motion. The third box controls how the throttle stick works. Left unticked, the throttle works forward for forward motion and back for reverse. If you tick the box, which I recommend, the forward stick movement controls the throttle and the back movement slows it down. Best to leave the emergency stop possible box ticked. This allows a full back movement of the stick to stop the truck immediately. Good if you need to stop quickly. The rest of this tab I'm leaving at default. Items are self-explanatory and you can experiment with these at your leisure. Just remember, you'll need to update the SFR-1 and allow it to reset to test out any changes you make. And if you don't like it, change it back, update, and you're back to where you were. Don't forget to save on the program exit if you want to save your changes within the program. The throttle curve graph and numbered boxes look daunting, but are actually quite simple. In essence, changes here merely affect how your stick responds to the throttle action. I personally like a logarithmic approach, which gives a smooth and slow throttle application rather than your truck darting off with only a small stick movement. At this stage, I would recommend transferring your changes to the SFR-1 and clicking on the blue Save button. Now move to the Prop Channel tab. This stands for Proportional Channel, which is your variable sticks. In Transmitter Mode 2, they are Channel 1, left vertical, which is throttle brake, Channel 2, right horizontal, which is steering, and Channel 3 is left stick horizontal, which is yours to assign, and Channel 4 is the right stick vertical, which is yours to assign. Proportional channel assignment can be confusing until you get the hang of it. I'll give you a quick overview now, but I strongly recommend you study pages 30 and 31 of the SFR-1 manual. Sound Teacher allows you to assign an action or function to 4 positions on each stick axis. These are physical stick positions. Working from centre of stick, one position is halfway along its travel and the other is full stick travel. Additionally, in each of these positions you can assign 2 actions, one for less than 2 seconds and one for more than 2 seconds. They are referred to in the software as short in position and long in position. Therefore, there are 8 possible assignments you can put on each proportional axis, making a total of 16 different actions or functions you can assign to the 2 spare stick channels that you have, channels 3 and 4. As I said a minute ago, reading pages 30 and 31 in the manual will explain this in more detail. So we have props 3 to 6. 3 and 4 are stick controls, but what about 5 and 6? Well, these 2 channels can be used for other assignments, usually servos, such as gear change, or fifth wheel or boom control. They have to be activated in the servos tab before they will work, but more on that in a bit. Let's look at channel 3. In the screenshot you'll see there's 3 sections for assignment and a delete assignment button. When you loaded the Detroit.sfr file, some positions have been pre-populated. You don't have to accept them, and usually I don't. Click the delete assignment button. It will remove all assignments, giving you a blank canvas to work with. In this screen, prop 3, you assign actions to the left stick horizontal movement, and the letters A, B, C, D mean A, fully to the left stick, B, halfway to the left, there is an N which means neutral, C is halfway to the right, and D is full right stick. Remember, these are the 4 usable stick positions, not timings. Add in 2 different timings per position, and there's your 8 slots per stick. Let's have an example assignment. Suppose you decide you want the horn to sound when you move the stick fully left for more than 2 seconds. This is position A, and your assignment will go in the long in position column. Start by clicking on the drop down arrow. The function screen opens where you can select the function or action that you require. Click as shown on Additional Sound 15. Then click OK to return to the Prop 3 page. The long in position A is now populated with the horn action. Getting the idea? The next thing to do will be to send that programming information to the SFR-1 because it is only on your PC screen at the moment. So as before, use the Transfer Project Data button, bottom right, to update your module. And if you intend to keep things as they are, click on the blue save icon as well. When your SFR-1 resets after the update, it should start the engine sound all by itself. Now test your assignment. Move the left stick to far left for more than 2 seconds. Your musical horn should sound. To summarise then, you can assign a wide range of actions or functions to the 16 different slots in Sound Teacher and then transfer them to your model. If an action doesn't quite work as expected or it's not to your taste, remove it from its slot using the blank not in use action on the function screen. Then update, and when you're finished, don't forget to save the software. So how can I listen to the different sounds in advance? It's easy. Let's go back to the Engine Sound tab. In the left rectangle you will see a green play icon against each sound. Make sure your PC sound is on and click on any line where a sound file is installed to hear that particular sound. The associated red cross would remove that sound, and the folder open icon gives you access to find other files to replace it. On the right hand side is the volume and length of a particular sound file. You can change the volume by clicking in the field. This way you can have a certain file louder or quieter than others. Let's go back to the Prop Channels tab and click on Prop 4. Note this time the ABCD refers to a vertical stick movement. This is the right stick. So A is up and D is down. It's helpful to know which box relates to which stick position, otherwise things get a bit confusing. As before, if you click on the Delete Assignments button, it will clear the screen and you can assign your own actions. Now that you know how to assign actions, it would be helpful if you took a piece of paper and worked out what actions you want to happen and where they should be on your stick controls layout. Here's one of mine to give you a few ideas. Let's look at props 5 and 6 now. Assuming you have a 6-channel system, of course, these are used for things like gears and fifth wheel, but they do need to be activated. First off, click on the prop 5 and 6 channels and remove any pre-populated assignments with the Delete Assignments button. We're doing this because we don't want other actions to conflict with our servo control. Now go to the Servo Outputs tab and then the Servo 1+2 tab. Here is where you tell Sound Teacher you want to activate the additional servo controls and which receiver channel you want to control which. Having ticked one or both boxes, go down to the Direct Control With drop list and assign the channel you want for that servo. For example, you may have the gear servo on channel 5. Note the 100% boxes. Leave these as they are to ensure full output is given to your servos. Once again, you'll need to transfer this info to the SFR-1 so that the changes will work, and don't forget the blue save icon for your software. Okay, let's get the lights working. Do you remember I barked on about noting down which lighting item you connected to which number on the AKL8 or 8W blocks? Well, now you'll see why that was so important. Click on the Outputs tab and then Outputs. This is where you tell Sound Teacher which of your lighting circuits, indicators, spotlights, that kind of stuff, are connected to which output lines. Down the left is the familiar 16 output lines. These refer to blocks A and B, 1 to 8. You may only be using one block, and you don't have to use all of them, only what you need. You'll see it's pre-populated with some lines, and I guarantee this is not what you want, and you need to work through each one and assign them correctly. For example, referring to your own circuit diagram, you can see that you've wired all near side indicators to number 1. So click the drop down arrow alongside 1 and select near side indicator from the list. The field is now updated, meaning when the system is asked to operate the left indicators, it will output that command to the correct channel. You now need to work down the list of connections you've made and edit the output screen to match for each one, removing anything else you don't need. The next screen we're looking at is Output Options. Here you'll find a lot of general configuration items that are customizable. Look through the list and make changes that suit you. Finish with a data update and a software save. Move on to the Light Switch tab now. This one is interesting. Whilst it is possible to assign all of your lights individually to slots, I wouldn't recommend it as you'll very quickly fill them all up. Beier gives us a convenient way to control the lights using a single slot for on and a single slot for off. You'll note there is 4 steps. Beier, and indeed digital electronics generally, start at 0 as the first step. A blank box means off and a black mark in the box means on. Read each line horizontally and separately. Note step 0 is the default position. So if you want running lights on all the time, click all the boxes under running lights. Here's how I'd set it up. Consider this a repetitive stick movement. Each time the movement is made, the lights move on to the next step. Step 0, step 1, step 2 and so forth. This is accomplished with the action Light Switch Plus. If you assign this to one slot and Light Switch Minus to another, these two actions are all you need to cycle through all of your lights. Here's my settings and the order of lights turning on. Step 0, the running lights are on all the time. Step 1, low beam headlights come on. Step 2, high beam headlights come on. Step 3, front fog lights come on. And so on. You could have step 4 where spotlights come on. You can add more steps if you wish. Also note that reverse, brake and indicator lights are available all of the time. The last tab I'm going to talk about is the function sequence. Once you've got a good handle on everything I've talked about, you can look at a bit of creativity. The function sequence tab has 8 sequence tabs within it. Each of this allows you to set up a macro, which are a set of automated instructions. For example, suppose you want the following: sound of someone walking to the cab, the sound of a door opening. You want the interior light to come on. Then you want to hear the sound of the door shutting. Then you want the sound of the engine starting. And after a few seconds, the interior light goes back out. This is a series of instructions I set up for a tow truck build. If it is then assigned at startup, as soon as you turn on the SFR-1, the above runs without you doing a thing. Pretty neat, eh? Another example is the tow truck roof bar. I wanted the 7 LEDs to flash quickly and out of sequence to give a realistic effect. No need to buy a wigwag device, just set up a macro and assign it to a stick position. These are just a few I have made on model builds to illustrate how flexible this software is. The last thing I'm going to look at is sound files. You can use your own WAV files in Sound Teacher, provided they meet the following. And the Sound Teacher always converts the sound file into the format 44 kHz 16-bit mono. To get a good sound, the WAV file should be in this format. I use Audacity, the free sound player editor on the Beier software stick, or you can download it. It's a great bit of software. Well, that's it, dear viewer. I've covered off all you need to get up and running. There's more to learn, and I've not covered everything. Shall we say stepping stones? Best to get your model set up and working well before you try some of the more advanced stuff like creating sequences. Don't be afraid to have a look around the software. Just remember, nothing will change if you don't update the SFR-1 and you don't click on save when you exit. This way the model remains intact with your last update or your last working update, and the next time you open the software it'll be at the same state it was when you opened it last time. I hope you've enjoyed this series, which has taken me a lot of time and effort to put together. It's been fun, and if I've helped you to understand this great piece of kit, then I've done my job. Until my next series, whatever that may be, bye for now.